guys, as you can see here, what I've done is remove the starter from the vehicle. And I'm going to show you this while the starter is removed simply because it is easier for you guys at home to see than for me to shove a camera underneath of this vehicle. This here is a very simple tool. It's called a test light. What it does is it measures automotive electrical circuits. Lets you know if they're working or not. If they're working, the little light bulb inside here will blink. This is your ground strap. What you want to do, and what I always do, is ground it to the negative battery terminal and do a quick test on the battery. Just make sure that it's working. As you can see, our light's lit up. It's working. Now what you want to do, if this starter was still mounted on the vehicle and you were laying underneath, this big post right here that you see is basically the power cable from your battery. This should always be powered, even when the key isn't even in the vehicle. You should be able to take your test light and touch this when that cable is hooked up, and your test light should light up. If it doesn't, you may want to check that connection, whether it be at the battery or the starter itself. Now, as you can see here, there's a smaller post. This smaller post is a 12-volt power source that comes from your key switch when you turn it to the start position. That's what actually engages your starter. So what you want to do with this starter on the vehicle and these wires hooked up, you'll want to touch your test light on here while you have a helper sit inside the vehicle and try to start it. If your test light lights up for a second when he tries to start it, it's probably a safe bet that you do in fact have a bad starter. Quick homeowner method you guys can use at home. Some of you might have heard of this. Of course, it's a hammer. A lot of times, when a starter starts to go bad, the electrical connections in here need to be jarred in order for it to work. You can give this a couple simple taps with a hammer, get back up inside and try to start it. Oftentimes it'll fire up. That means that your starter is getting weak and it's ready to go. If that's your case, I would recommend that you go home and you replace your starter before it leaves you sitting. And believe me, my friends, it will leave you sitting. Now, say you can't get it to do anything with a hammer. You've confirmed that you have power on these two posts like I just explained. So how do you test it? Take it to your local auto parts store, let them put it on that machine that you think you might need. You don't. I'm going to show you an easy method to test this that probably every one of you has the tools for at home. What we have here is a simple set of jumper cables. Pretty sure every one of you probably has a set of these in your garage or in the trunk of your vehicle. This is an insulated screwdriver. You can use just about anything that has a plastic or rubber handle, just as long as it's not, straight metal all the way through, a wrench or something like that. You're going to wind up working stuff out. Might even give yourself a little bit of a jolt. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take and hook these jumper cables up. So basically what you want to do is you want to hook these jumper cables up as if you were going to jump start your vehicle. Of course, red on your positive, black on your negative. Run them down here to your starter. Okay? You want to put the red on this big post just as if it was on the vehicle hooked up to your battery. You want to take the ground cable and ground it to the body of the starter. Now you want to take this screwdriver, you want to jump these two posts over. Watch this Bendix gear area right here. I just confirmed that we have a good starter. If you do that, and you just hear a bunch of click, 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 or this Bendix gear just simply does nothing, chances are you will have a bad or faulty starter. So now that we've confirmed we have a bad starter, or that we have a good starter, maybe we have another issue going on. Perhaps maybe we have a bad neutral safety switch. Sometimes you may not want to spend the money that it costs to replace your neutral safety switch. They can be somewhat expensive, sometimes $100 or more. Some of you may not know how to replace it or even where it's located. And I may show you that on a different vehicle later. But there is something that you can do that is much cheaper and really isn't that hard to bypass that. Now what you would do, buy your local auto parts store. Buy you a 20 amp starter button. This is usually used for race cars, whatever. And you basically just find a panel that's convenient for you. You would take this button, drill a hole in your dash, and you would mount it. These two connections on the back are your wiring connectors. What you're going to want to do is take a piece of wire, and you want to pull from your positive battery cable, and you want to run it nice and neatly around. Find a spot in the firewall to run it through. Usually there's an existing grommet, where you probably have some factory wiring already coming through. Like, see this right here? Perfectly acceptable. Stick a coat hanger or something in there, tape that wire to it, and pull it through. This here is an inline fuse link. Now you can just run a straight wire off your battery to this button, and it'll work fine. It'll probably work fine for a long time. I don't recommend it, and I'm going to tell you why. Because down the line, if that wire were to rub where you put it through the firewall or wherever, and would create a bare spot that would touch metal and short out, it's possible that circuit could get hot and maybe even cause a fire, and you don't want that. Fuses are simply made so that they pop when the circuit gets hot and it kills the power going the rest of the way back. Very cheap, about $3.99 plus tax at pretty much any auto parts store, maybe $5.99, depends on your local area. And yeah, put you at least a 20 amp fuse there. I would recommend a 30. Good piece of safety insurance that you're not going to burn your vehicle down. So you come off your battery with your wire, you put your inline fuse link in, you run it around, make sure your wire isn't run in the way of something that will get extremely hot or moving mechanical objects, something like that. Bring it through the firewall. You're going to attach it to one of these screws, then you're going to attach another piece of wire to one of these screws. You're going to run it back out the firewall. You're going to run it across and down whichever side your starter's mounted on. On this particular vehicle, it's on the passenger side. And what you're doing, basically, what you're going to do is you're going to take and you're going to connect it at this small terminal as if your key switch was powering it. But now it's not. Now your button is. Now, wait a minute. I know what you guys are thinking. You're thinking, well, somebody could just hop into my car, hit a button and start it, and just steal my car and drive off. No, they can't. You're still going to have to use your key because there are certain functions that your car needs from the key switch power, such as your fuel pump, engine electronics, ECU, that kind of stuff, ignition. All of that is powered by the key being in the on position. So you would still need to take the key, turn it to the on position, and then push that button to start it. If someone does not have the key to turn it on, they can push that button. All they're going to do is turn the starter over and over and over and over. The vehicle's never going to start. And this will cost you in total about $20, give or take, depending on your area, for this button, this inline fuse link, and a simple 30 amp fuse, and some 12 gauge primary wire. That's really all you need to do this job. So if you suspect that you have a neutral safety switch issue, and you're not willing to put the money or the effort even into replacing that neutral safety switch, you can do that and it will work just fine.